Welcome to Mrs. True Crime, and happy Black History Month. Today's video is an in-depth look into Gail Cobb, the first African-American woman killed in the line of duty. It's a tale of conflicting stories and schemes. If you are triggered by anything dealing with death, feel free to click off this video. Perhaps check out my gaming channel, Retell Me Games, for some lighthearted content. If not, I'm Nicole. Let's get started. The first female officer sworn in was 48-year-old Lola Baldwin on April 1st, 1908 in Portland, Oregon. She supervised the Portland Police Department Women's Protective Division from 1908 to 1922. During her time, the first African-American female officers would be sworn in: Georgia A. Robinson for the LAPD and Cora I. Parchment for the NYPD in 1919. Cora is known as the first official African-American female officer in the United States. These women, and many more, played a larger role in introducing women into law enforcement, showcasing that women were just as assertive, fast, and physically capable as a man. Perhaps it was this assertiveness that led 24-year-old Gail Cobb to enroll into the police academy for the Metropolitan Police Department. Gail Cobb was born August 17, 1950, to Clinton and Gloria Cobb. She was the second of 5 children. The route to law enforcement was paved by Clinton Cobb as far back as Gail could remember. Though he was rejected from the D.C. Police Department because he didn't meet height requirements, he joined the D.C. Department of Corrections in 1955. From there, he steadily rose until he was the senior guard captain at Lorton Corrections. Clinton and Gloria maintained a strict household, raising the children through Catholic churches. Despite what her teachers deemed a wild streak, Gail was described as creative and energetic. But the tame life wasn't and would never be enough for her. She became fond of cigarettes and expensive perfumes and makeup. She attended the occasional party and tried to build a life outside of the Cobb household. The life she was creating involved her high school sweetheart, Leroy Royster. Leroy was considered too smooth by Clinton and was a touchy subject among the family, but Gail was in love. That strong connection led to a pregnancy soon after they graduated in 1969. Gail's dreams included becoming a fashion designer, but she was unsure how to get there, so instead became a long-distance operator. She moved in with Leroy for a while, but soon moved back home after his arrest on forgery charges. But Gail wasn't one to be stationary, so she moved yet again to her maternal grandmother's home for the majority of her pregnancy. On February 26, 1970, Gail gave birth to Damon Demetrius Cobb. He was 6 pounds, 5 ounces, and would be surrounded by love and passion, but sadly, not his biological father. With Leroy in jail, he withdrew his commitment to Damon and Gail, and she raised Damon for 4 years with the assistance of her parents and grandmother. Maybe it was inspiration from her dad, or maybe she was just tired of working for the telephone company. But in the summer of 1973, when the D.C. Department lowered the height requirements, Gail applied. Best friend Donna Thomas couldn't understand why Gail wanted to apply, stating she was sensitive and kind of dainty. Yet Gail persevered, graduating from the academy in April 1974. She was one of 13 women to graduate. Trainers remembered that though she had a good attitude and a strong determination, she was a below-average performer. Therefore, Gail was a part of a special program that placed borderline prospects to prove themselves in the field with extra time to pass written tests. Her probation was a mix of foot and car patrol. She took it seriously, applying for a scooter license and taking night classes to learn sign language. Everything was looking up for Officer Gail Cobb. But on September 20th, 1974, at approximately 10:30 a.m., Officers William Tinsley and George Bailey were driving by Eastern Liberty Federal Savings and Loan when they spotted 2 men who they thought were looking funny. The 2 men were standing by a green Pontiac Grand Prix, parked across the street of the bank. The officers got out of their marked cruiser in civilian clothes and asked the men for ID. One of them raised a loaded shotgun at Bailey, who grabbed it and pushed it away. The two officers ducked as the suspects ran off. It was later discovered that the suspects had 2 loaded sawed-off shotguns and 2 loaded handguns in a construction worker's tool bag. The suspects headed down an alley with the officers in tow. The one with the shotgun turned and fired at the officers. Officer Bailey fired 2 shots, and Tinsley fired 6, though no one was hit during any of the gunfire. Eventually, the men fled to a parking lot, then separated, losing sight of the officers. Nearby, Cobb was writing a traffic ticket when someone told her a suspicious man ran into a parking garage. Changing out of his green overalls, the suspicious man left the garage bathroom and was confronted by Officer Cobbs. Some reports state that Cobbs didn't pull out her weapon prior to telling the man to place his hands on the wall. Others say she never got the chance, but what the reports didn't miss was that the man pulled out his gun and fired. The bullet either went through her watch or her police radio, passing to her forearm and piercing her heart. She was rushed to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. The gunman, revealed to be John William Bryant, fled, but was apprehended by officers Kieran McCarthy and Natoro Sylvester soon after. Despite confessing to the murder, Bryant was sentenced for second-degree murder because the jury decided that he didn't mean to shoot her. He was sentenced to 15 years to life, but after 18 years served, he was paroled in 1992. He was arrested again in November 1993 for possession of 20 rocks of cocaine and 3 bags of marijuana in his car. After many court delays, it was concluded that the drugs in his possession couldn't be used as evidence. The cops didn't have probable cause to believe Bryant was committing a crime when they asked him to get out of his car. In 1997, the court revoked Bryant's parole for possession, but he was not returned to prison and instead allowed to remain in an inpatient alcohol treatment program. The second man, John C. Dortch, turned himself in. Dortch was the leader of the attempted bank robbery and a freshly formed black empowerment group called the New Nation. The mission of the heist involved 8 people and was to fund legitimate black-owned businesses. In '96, he stated he was angry at the country and at financial institutions for refusing to loan him $50,000 to start an investment firm that would work with black clients. He was charged with second-degree murder, attempted armed robbery, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 15 years to life, but paroled in '89 for good behavior. He then attended the District of Columbia Law School and graduated in 1994. He applied to practice law in Maryland and West Virginia. Dortch turned his life around, but the Cobbs were unconvinced and uncaring of his newfound attitude, and apparently so was Maryland. Both Maryland and West Virginia rejected Dortch's application to practice law. Gail's funeral was one of the largest in the city's history, rounding out close to 3,000 mourners. Her parents purchased a glass churro cabinet and filled it with memorabilia of Gail, including a photo of her in her uniform, the boots she wore the day she was killed, her badge, a record of her favorite song, Tell Her Love Has Felt the Need by Eddie Kendricks, and letters and proclamations from public figures, including a letter from President Ford. Like any death would, Gail's played a large role in shaping her son Damon. He started off on a positive path, his grandparents formally adopting him and setting up a trust with Gail's insurance money, but when he reached high school, his behavior grew troublesome. Soon he was in court often for thievery and vandalism. Hoping to help, the Cobbs enrolled him in boxing for 3 years. Though he was good at it, his troubling behavior continued. Around his 18th birthday, he was informed about the $140,000 he would inherit. He used the money for hotels, sports cars, jewelry for his girlfriend, and payouts to his friends. Soon the money and most of his friends were gone, but his criminal reputation grew. Cocaine possession in 1990, assault and burglary in 1991, and a long list of others. In 1992, Gerald Carlton Weaver was shot and killed in front of his mother. His case would have remained unsolved until Tressa Weeks called police and reported the shooter, Damon Cobbs. Tressa Weeks was Damon's girlfriend and mother of his third child, Gail Cobbs. A jury found him guilty of first-degree murder on August 31, 1993, and was sentenced to life in Cumberland, Maryland. In 1915, the International Association of Policewomen were formed. 69 years later, the National Organization of Black Women in Law Enforcement was created. Today, women make up 13% of all law enforcement agencies, with 5% African American. Lola Baldwin, Cora I. Parchman, Georgia A. Robinson, and Gail Cobb helped to push women into positions that were considered only for men, and yet it seems we still have a lot of room left to go. I'm Mrs. True Crime, and remember to be kind, be loud, be aware. For more information about Gail Cobb, why not check out some of these awesome links? And if you like what you saw and heard today, why not drop a like and a comment? Maybe subscribe while you're here? I make new videos every Tuesday and Friday, and you don't want to miss what's in store.